'cause you have set me free. There is no greater love than this.
Welcome to What God Has Done With My Pain, episode 2. Wow, episode 2, that's crazy, the fact that I've made it that far. God is so good. In this episode, I interview Linda Lindsey, who I think is an incredible person. I admire her and treasure her deeply. She is such a God-loving woman, and she is just, I truly cannot describe her. She's just incredible and indescribable, and I'm really excited for you to hear what God has done with her pain. The theme of the podcast, I've managed to keep it on track, so I hope you enjoy this episode.
I cannot contain this knowledge of your love. Shout it from the roof.
I want to start off by saying what an honor it is to have you on my podcast, Linda.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're such an incredible person, and you are so strong. I've mentioned it before. I've met you in passing and in the Grace Kids, but to actually get to sit down and talk to you is a whole different experience.
Well, the feeling is mutual.
Are you, just out of curiosity, I don't think we've ever talked about it, but are you originally from North Carolina? Where are you originally from?
No, I was born in Indiana. And I've just moved all over the country. I spent the first 18 years of my life, 22, just within 18 miles of my home.
Oh, wow.
Going to school and all that. My family didn't travel or anything. And then moved down to Texas, and then later got married. And my husband and I have traveled all over the country in ministry and work and things like that.
Did you grow up in the church?
No, no, yes and no. My parents were not churchgoers, but my grandparents were.
Oh.
And so I got my just love of the church. Didn't know Jesus for quite some time, but especially through my grandparents, one set of my grandparents, that whenever we'd go visit them, they'd take us to church, and I just loved being there. And even as a child, I would go to church by myself, and because my heart was just so drawn there. But it was years again, before I really understood the true meaning of a relationship with God. So.
Yeah. And that's amazing. It seems to be a pattern in a lot of people's lives of I was in church as a child, but my relationship with Jesus hadn't solidified yet. I hadn't known what that was like. Well, what was little Linda like?
Oh my goodness.
Was she a troublemaker?
Yes.
You did not hesitate.
I was the middle child of 5 and the third girl. And I was very mischievous and disobedient at times. I can only remember 2 spankings, but they were very profound in my life. And but I have to say, I was outgoing. I'd like to be up on the stage, I like singing and dancing and being in little musicals and things like that. And,
oh, wow. Did you get along with your siblings, or did you have sibling fights?
Oh, well, I feel like I got along with them, and we, especially my second oldest sister, we played a lot together, pretending, and I loved my 2 brothers. They were just treasures to me. So, and then my older sister was a gem because she was very artistic, and she would make paper dolls for us, and we'd play school. And even when I got older in middle school, and she was 5 years older than me, she let me borrow her clothes. I'm sure we had little spats and all that, but I treasure my siblings, and even more so today,
Yeah, that's incredible. A lot of the
very
times
lucky.
With my clients, I hear them saying my sister touches my stuff, and that's a big no. We do not share clothes. That's not a thing we do. So it's nice to know that you guys had that.
Oh yes, we needed each other because the rest of it wasn't so great. Growing up.
Yeah. And do you feel like, the way I like to think about it is, up to what age do you feel like you were a kid, and then after a certain age, do you feel like you transitioned into knowing a little bit more about the world and the toughness of the world, or do you think it was a mix?
I think it was a sudden life event. My mother was 38 years old when she suddenly died.
Well, that's
And-
young.
Yes.
That's
And so
very
I
young.
was 12, and it was just totally unexpected. It was due to smoking joined with birth control pills, which was a big no-no in the 60s. But they, from my understanding, the birth control back then was very strong and way more than powerful than what they give today.
Wow. Yeah.
And so she died of massive blood clots, and she kept having these little spells, and then it was just over. And so that was very devastating because my mother was the glue that held my family together.
Yeah.
Like my dad, bless his heart, I loved my dad, and I hated him at the same time. I look back at pictures of him, and he was really a loving, good dad, but he was an alcoholic, and it just kept getting worse and worse until it just took away who he was meant to be, and he became an angry, absent father.
Yeah.
And it didn't stop when my mother died. And so that was very painful. And it just changed him. It changed our whole family dynamic. It was very fearful and distant. We never knew what was going to happen next. And so that definitely changed me. That was a turning point for me because, my sister was off to college. My other sister was, she was there a lot, but she was at that age of being with friends. And so I was me in junior high with my two brothers.
Yeah. And that's such a pivotal moment in a young girl's life where you need your mom.
Yes.
Because that's a transition from little girl to young woman.
Right.
To periods, crushes, little things of like doing makeup, getting ready, buying clothes. So I imagine not only was that a moment of transition for you into the real world of like the harshness of life, but also it being highlighted that she wasn't around.
Right.
Because I can imagine what that must have been like for you.
And wasn't fair, and I really didn't realize it till later, but I did blame my dad because I just felt like, well, you've been so unfaithful to my mother. You've been harsh with her. You're never home. Everything's on her back. I just thought, well, the Lord just took her. God took her. And that, I don't really believe that anymore. I mean, I think it was just it was a physical thing that happened that my dad did not purposely cause.
Sounds like 12-year-old you was trying to make sense of a
right.
loss.
And I felt happy for my mom, even though I didn't really understand, I felt for certain my mom had to be there.
Yeah.
Because she sure did keep our family together and try to be a good person, At the time, that's what I thought. So, yeah. And then, I don't know if you want to get into this, but I also, during that time, my dad one night tried to sexually assault me. And that rocked my world completely because no longer, and one thing he said to me at that time was, you remind me so much of your mother. You're just like your mom. And so that clicked in my head and I'm not going to be anything like my mom because I don't want what you're trying to push on me.
Yeah.
And
your defense went up.
Right. And nothing ever happened after that, but I could not ever feel like I could trust my dad or that I was, afraid. I felt guilty, like, well, I brought that on me, I brought that on him, like, oh my goodness. Like I thought that before that moment that I did try to dress like her, I mean, those were the days when we wore these little 3-corner triangle headscarves.
Oh,
and they matched your dress and your shoes and all that. And that scarf left, after that. And
a part of you died.
Right.
A part of you
I never
died
thought of it that way.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, did you feel guilt afterwards? Because you're being told this and all you can do is self-reflect. You don't think as much as like, you can, but you don't think so much of like what my dad is doing is wrong and it's not my fault. Like you immediately reflect on yourself and to be told that the woman you loved and the woman is no longer here, your mother, and like you, of course, were like possibly dressing up like her and like just trying to hold on to her memory, having this happen, just that piece of you that was holding on for so long and fighting for that memory was taken away. Like you went into a mode of like, I can't let this happen. I don't want this to happen again. I don't want to feel uncomfortable. I want to put up a secure way of knowing that I have control in this moment, knowing how I carry myself and how I act. And yeah, and it sounds like, the way you describe it, it's a beautiful outfit, and it's a beautiful way to like wear all of that, and then to have to put that in a box,
right,
and put it away.
And then I felt like I lost my dad at the same time because I couldn't get close to him. I was afraid of him. It was like I had, and I could, and he tried to reconcile that relationship, but it was never with the truth. I mean, like I'm a little girl, but I knew what was going to happen was not right, and I didn't understand the birds and the bees at the time.
Yeah.
And those were the days where you didn't have access to the internet, and you couldn't, you had to find out different ways, either from parents or school or whatever. But so yeah, I felt like I lost my dad at the same time, and that was really a lonely feeling because.
I can definitely relate to that. I mean, I talk about it in my episode, but when you're a child and you haven't been exposed to that, and you haven't developed into that curiosity yet, and that is introduced to you in a completely different platform and perspective, whether it's like a family member or a close friend or something, like it's shift, like it feels like a part of you wakes up in an odd way.
It's confusing.
It's very confusing.
It was very confusing. And then but it was the thing I was going for also was that because I knew it wasn't wrong, I knew it was wrong, and I knew that it was a big part his fault, but he would not admit it. He was in such denial. If he would have said, I shouldn't have done that, that was wrong, God would not have wanted me to treat you that way, then, but I couldn't say, at that time all I could do, where every time we'd have those talks, I was just frozen. I couldn't say, what he would say to me was, it wasn't what you thought. You took that the wrong way. And I was like, no, I did not.
And I knew it. Validated in what happened.
Right.
You know what? I didn't talk about this in my episode, but I have a similar like moment where I had shared with my mom something that had like occurred with my stepfather at the time. Like he made a pass at me. And I think I was like around 12 at that age. And I told my brother about it. My brother confronted my mom about it. My mom confronted him, my uncle, and everybody got involved. And he denied that I was crazy, that it didn't happen, that I was making it up. And that makes you question everything in yourself, because you know what happened. You have a memory of it happening, but then you can't have that relationship with that person because they're not acknowledging what they did.
Right.
They're not giving you that. And so it made, at least for me in that situation, it made me feel, did I make this up?
Yeah.
Was this just a figment of my imagination that I created? Do I know what I said? Because now that my reality has been questioned and like shifted, and you're telling me that what I'm saying is not true, you go into this weird spiral where it becomes such a gray area.
So then you're wounded twice.
Exactly, wounded twice. Yeah. So I imagine, like, off of what you're saying, like, it would have been easier for you to have a relationship with him. Like, it would have, like, the healing process could have begun had he accepted the truth and what happened. Wow. Yeah.
And then, too, I mean, I don't know if that situation kept him away, but, he never came to any of our events or, celebrations or birthdays or anything like that. And I mean, there's a happy end to this story. So I don't want to be so, there really is a good ending to this story, but
to have a good end, you've got to talk about.
Right. And I know that it made me like an overachiever. I mean, it's not bad that I did really well in school. That there are benefits to being an overachiever at times, and it also helped me get through a lot. But I was always trying to earn his attention and his true love, and then because of that, I think I went looking for love in all the wrong places. As I got to be a young woman and a young adult. And, part of that's on me too. I mean, I take credit completely for that part of my life, but I know that it's a pattern in a lot of people's lives.
And it's also just your first introduction by the man that you love, your father, who is a man made a pass. And so you make this odd association.
Right.
And it could be with anyone, honestly. It's like you said, it is such a strong pattern. And
then it messes up boundaries. It's like, you would think you'd have stricter boundaries, and I'm sure there are women that do with men, but for me, it was the opposite. And it wasn't what I really wanted in my heart, but I always felt like other people's desires were more important than mine. And there were times when I really didn't want to be involved in situations that I was involved in.
I really agree with that. I feel like you either go into a strong right where you create a strong boundary, or you turn left and you don't have that strong boundary. And it's just this blurry line where you're just like, this is what I know to be acceptable. That this is something that is just what's wanted and what's fun and what is the thing that seems to be it seems to be surrounded in, right? Like, this is what you lean towards. They're not going to want to be in a relationship with me if we don't have this.
Yeah.
Or if I don't act, or if I'm not willing. Like, because you never think about, are you wanting to be with me even if we don't extend to that?
Right.
Which is, it's a hard thing to face when you go into this snowball effect or domino effect. Because when that happens to you at such a young age, and then you become a woman, you become a young woman, and you meet other partners, you just associate with, the only way that I can create a relationship with this person is if I become intimate with this person and expose myself in a way that allows them in, and this is how I can have a relationship. And you're right, we are responsible for what we've done and the people that we've been with, but at the same time, it is like a cause and effect too. And same for women who, again, I'm not a professional therapist or anything, but I imagine that for the women that create a long, hard line of boundary can hurt, because it's there is no such thing as crossing that line for some of them. So it's a different effect. But you were saying as you got older.
Well, I think too, we're all looking for the ultimate love, and because that's what God built into us, was to, he made us out of love, and he wants to connect with us in love, in the purest way. And the world, because of what happened in that garden way back when, we're all trying to get this sense of fulfillment with fake love, or not just love, but, power or success, financial success, or personal success, or whatever you're feeling of what's going to make you feel fulfilled, and it's not satisfying or lasting, I found,
Yeah. It's like a temporary solution for a long problem type of.
Right. I mean, I tried all kinds of things relationships, went from relationship to relationship and to be great for a while. And then, that's getting boring or it's not getting me what I want.
Yeah.
And then I always dreamt as a little girl of being an actress. And I had moved to Dallas, Texas after college, and I was a flight attendant also, and that was that was a fun thing I just wanted to do.
How long were you a flight attendant?
I was a flight attendant for 5 years, and I wish I was still doing it, actually. Not during COVID, though. Those poor flight attendants really took a beating.
Yeah.
But it was a really fun job. But and so on the side, because you could schedule a lot of days off, I was pursuing an acting career. And I really had fun with it. And I was doing was pretty successful. I only did it for a couple years, but I did a lot of TV commercials and things like that, industrial training films and radio announcements. But it was just never enough. There was just like, what's missing? You know, what's missing? And so that's where I was kind of stuck in my 20s.
And you just, again, that's incredible to me. You were a flight attendant. That just, I can imagine you, Linda, just on a flight, tending to people.
Well, I love people.
Yeah,
and I love serving people, and so that's a good job. But there's some bad parts of it too.
I can imagine. Yeah,
but it was fun. I enjoyed
imagine,
it.
I'm pretty sure it's so known about the not chasing, but like stepping into becoming an actress or an actor. How hard that can be on a person. You know, like how the pressure of that and also the comparison of that.
Right. There's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of competition, you know, but it's fun when you get a job that you like, you know.
Yeah. And how long did you do that for? Like, how long were you pursuing acting?
I was just in it for a couple years. Although after I became a Christian, I have used that gift for 42 years. I've used it in the church mainly. I started to college, I was going to be a drama student, and then the people in the theater kind of freaked me out. That's the flip side of creative people. But I was just insecure, you know. But I ended up getting a teaching degree. But it's funny because then I taught. I did a lot of directing children's musicals and for my children in public schools and in Christian school, and directed high school musicals and dramas, and then things for mission trips. And I've done mime and things for missions and women's groups and things like that. So I've been able to use that gift just in a different way.
And a big treasure box of gifts and things that you have done and sprinkled into the lives of others. Because when you're working with children, you're sprinkling onto them.
Oh, I hope so. I really treasure children.
Yeah. And that's beautiful, because kids, they live, again, like back to what we said in the beginning, like before you step into, because you don't have to be 18 to step into the real world. Some people have a life where they stepped earlier than others, and some, you know, at 12, 15, like different ages. And when you can preserve that childlike wonder for longer, it's so treasured, you know, that nowadays the expectation on kids to be able to take care of themselves. And that's true. Like, kids are capable of so much, but also giving them a bit of leniency of like, how about we let them live in this world of childlike wonder before they go past it and you can never return. It's like you can't go back to what that is like. And so to sprinkle onto those kids and to feed into them and pour into them, it's really good. And sometimes kids can teach you things too.
Oh, also, that's what I was going to say is because like I'm still teaching children. I taught kindergarten mostly for about 14 years, and I taught totally 25 years. I taught from preschool all the way through high school. But my favorite was the kindergarten, and I still teach at church here too, because they, like you said, they teach me so much. They give me such joy, and I still feel like I'm able to keep a little bit of my childhood, because you can sing and dance, and I think as adults sometimes we need to remember that we're still children, and in a good way. That faith, simple faith, and
that is
joy.
So I saw this video a while ago, months ago, where this woman was turning, I don't remember how old, but she was having a birthday, and she was saying that, like, although she may be celebrating, let's say 35, some days she's still a 5-year-old. Some days she's a 10-year-old. Some days she's a moody 15-year-old, you know, and some days she just wants to be a 2-year-old. And that there's nothing wrong with finding that child within yourself and bringing them back out. And I think a lot of the times we won't allow ourselves to be kids. It's even with like our loved ones, like there's this like unspoken expectation that you need to do this and this and this. And that's great, being responsible, but like what more fun can you have while being responsible, but with joy behind it, and responsibility and running around, and because then that trickles on to your spouse, your family, your friends, that joy versus feeding into the hard expectations and kind of being like, well, no, I feel like I'm just going to be joyous today or a little lazier today, or I feel I'm stuck in this weird mood. And that's probably 15-year-old me again. Because I don't know about you, Linda, but I remember what it was like to be a teenager, and I do not miss being a teenager. It is such a weird time.
Right.
You're even though you're not under a spotlight, you feel like you're on a spotlight.
Right. You think everyone's looking at you, everything you do.
Of the universe.
Yeah. And you are just gaining your confidence.
Yeah.
But if your confidence is not based in who God made you to be, then it's a real battle.
Yeah, it is. It is. Oh my goodness. And I mean, this has all been like just the beginning of everything that you've been talking about now has been truly incredible. How about we take a quick 5-minute break and then we jump back into it and go on to everything else from once you went from going and pursuing acting to when you met your husband and you guys got together and what that was like for you as well.
Okay.
Awesome.
What you've done for me.
Okay, now that we're back, so talk to me about what it was like transitioning out of flight attendee, or like what your life was like, because you said you were stuck.
Okay. Well, I was married right before I quit being a flight attendant, and I went through a divorce. I was married for 2 years and went through a divorce. And then it was about, I guess it was just maybe another year. My life was not going where I wanted it to. You know, I wanted to be a person that people looked up to or respected, and I wasn't that. And so I flew with another flight attendant, and I don't think she would mind me sharing her name. At the time, her name was Mitzi Little Creek, and she was just a beautiful girl. I just loved her. And it was funny because the first time I flew with her was during her, you had to go like through a little probationary time, and you had to fly, and you weren't officially a flight attendant until you flew with another veteran flight attendant and all that. And so she was on my flight, and bless her heart, she was getting sick almost every flight. And we had like 7 legs to our trip. And I was going to write her up and saying, I don't think this girl should be a flight attendant because she's always getting sick. And I thought about it. It's like, she's here. She's good at what she's doing. It's her choice, you know? I mean, if she wants, you know, if she is getting sick and she can deal with it, who am I to make a decision for her? And so that was amazing that I did that, because that wasn't me.
Yeah.
The old me probably would have written her off.
Yeah,
I'm
showing
so
grace.
glad I didn't, because anyway, we ended up becoming roommates.
Oh, wow. What a jump.
I know.
Writing you up.
I know.
Sharing a
And
bathroom.
we ended up flying it together a lot, and she needed a roommate, and I needed to get out of a situation I was in. And I really was hesitant, because I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to live up to this beautiful girl's expectations.
Yeah.
I want to, but they live different lives than I do. But I just knew down in my soul that if I don't move in with her, my life is never going to change. Mm-hmm. And I moved in with her, and she and a friend kept inviting me to a Bible study. Didn't want to go. You know, I thought the people were a little odd. And so finally I just went because I wanted to get her off my back. Yeah. And so I ended up going, and they were going through a little booklet that told how you can have a personal relationship with God.
Wow.
And like I said before, I always wanted to know God, but I didn't know the difference. I didn't know all the different religions. I didn't know what was the path. I didn't know what Jesus had to do with God, and if that was truly the way. And so they shared about, that Jesus had died on the cross to pay for my sins. And that because he had lived a perfect life and he was the Son of God, he proved that by dying on the cross and being resurrected 3 days later. That was proof. I read all of that. That just really struck a chord with me. And I knew it was the truth. And I didn't tell them at the time that that's what I wanted. But, the book went on to explain that you can by faith, just admit to God that you've made mistakes and ask him to forgive you. And I had no problem doing that. I had a big, long sin list. And I did. And I asked him to be my Heavenly Father and that I wanted to live for him from then on. And so my life did a complete 180. It really did.
Isn't that amazing? Like
right.
Looking back, you can see, like it probably didn't happen with a snap of your finger, but you can look back and be like, oh my goodness. Like,
well, I didn't understand how Christianity all worked. I didn't understand who the Holy Spirit was, but I did know that, now I could say no to things. And I could, especially for women, there are some really charming charming guys out there. And they can just draw you in. I see them still, and there's just they're still out there. I'm old, but but I was able to say no.
Yeah,
and I had never been able to have such great boundaries.
Yeah.
And it was funny because it was like I could see that even it was almost like I had this shield in front of me, like, don't touch this girl. She's not who you thought she was anymore.
Yeah.
And I loved that, It was God's protection over me. And I started making good decisions. I met my husband then.
Did you like him at first?
Yes, I was very, drawn to him. It was funny because before I became a Christian, I had joined this gym in Dallas, Texas. That's where we met. Because I wanted to marry somebody that was good looking, healthy, and rich.
Linda, what an amazing game plan. For all of you listening, and you have not found a man or a husband or a partner of any sorts, please know that that is the perfect. Find a little circle with all of those nearby, and you're set to find the right person. I love that.
Well, anyway, I was riding on a exercise bicycle with that little booklet. I was trying to memorize it so I could share it with other people. Wow. And he recognized it, came up to me, and we just started talking, and he identified himself as a Christian. And yes, I was very attracted to him and drawn to him, and we started just hanging out, But I could tell that he was really anxious, ready. He really wanted to get married. And I felt like I'm not ready for that at all. I mean, I just accepted the Lord. I would not be a good person for you to go in that direction because my life has been an absolute mess and I need to spend more time. And so one time we went out and he was taking me somewhere and I came with my Bible and I told him right off, I said, we need to have a talk and I told him all of that. Yeah. And he said, okay, just like that. I mean, I thought that he was, too eager to want to get married, but he was like okay with that. It was like, okay,
he respected
we can just
boundary,
be friends. And, he trusted God.
Wow.
Although I know he really liked me.
Yeah.
But it was funny once he said that, then it gave me the freedom. Okay, well, let's just hang out more then.
And, you're like, well, now I'm interested.
Yeah, right. And I didn't feel like it had to go that direction. Yeah. And it gave me the freedom. But it did move along quite quickly. And 5 months later, we were married.
That's incredible. Yeah. That is incredible.
Yeah. And I was very lucky not lucky, but blessed because I really didn't have a lot of sense about me. And before, I didn't really make good decisions. But God gave me a second chance at a marriage. And he, my husband was walking with the Lord. And together we grew and raised 5 children. Wow. And have had a good journey together. I mean, it's not been easy, because life happens out there and we're still growing. And even I'm 68 and I'm still making mistakes and still growing. Yeah. But we're heading in the right direction together, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, it's so important to be so transparent when things don't go right, because
Right.
we, especially in this era where everything has a filter on it, everything is polished when it's posted. People aren't going to put on their Facebook feed all the arguments that happen behind closed doors,
Right.
or when things fall through, or when they're struggling financially, or when they're going through, like, I mean, I guess it depends on the person, because some people do post everything, but but yeah, like in this society where we have a lot of influencers and picture perfect, and just like the idea of the perfect body and the perfect relationship. And so sometimes when you are in a very healthy marriage and relationship, but you have things that you stumble over, it's so good to be transparent and open, because it shows that, like, this is normal, this is real, this is human. Which a lot of people are quick to kind of shield their lives and not be humble and honest. And a lot of the times that's probably what another couple needs, is just to be like, oh wow, like they struggle with the same things we struggled with, let's go ask them for advice. How did you overcome this? Or they're parenting a teenager, how did you overcome
Right.
this? And it's the little things that, if you're willing to be transparent about it, then opens up the door to either, because like your pain later on becomes someone else's help.
Mhm.
Like if you're able to look back at how you overcame certain things, or what tools you took from it, and you see someone else struggling in that same area, then you're able to step over and with their permission say, hey, like, this is what helped me. Or even opening up the door for them to come into your house and ask you how it opened. So yeah, like you said, it probably was not perfect the whole time, but that speaks so true to growth and being a real person and being authentic, that a lot of the times we want people to believe that our lives is perfect, but they're not,
I think it's so important to not keep secrets. I mean, you don't have to tell everything about your past. I mean, my husband and I don't go through our past relationships and tell, every intimate detail that, some of those things just need to be let go. But I don't keep secrets at the same time. He knows my journey completely. It's just, I think you've just got to be, like you said, transparent.
Yeah, I think it brings you together too. Like it unites you a bit more, because allowing someone to look into your life and see the things that you've been through, and then accept you and show you love and grace, like kind of the unity gets stronger.
Right. And you want to be able to say, I'm struggling with this.
Yeah.
Or for your husband to be able to say to you, I'm struggling with this,
Yeah.
will you pray for me? Yeah. And, most with that, one of the biggest struggles out there, I think, for men is like just God, looking at other women, and there's just so much to look at out there and a lot that's not covered up. And they need to be able to come home to you and say, this lady's really flirty, or the way she dresses. And I'm glad my husband, as far as I know, told me everything, but I think he has. And I remember those conversations, and it goes both ways,
Yeah, just being open and transparent. Kind of like when you told him, I'm not ready for marriage, allowed him to show you, okay, that's fine. I'm willing to wait. I'm really willing to be patient. And then that made you confident and comfortable in the man that you were dating, because you're like, oh, wow, like you respected me and you accepted what I said, and you didn't put up a fight. That's really good. That makes me feel comfortable. So yeah, like I agree. I feel like being super transparent with your partner, and because you're right. Like in some couples argue about why were you looking at her, and I wasn't looking at her, and it's like, well, if you just say, oh yeah, you're right, you caught me, I'm sorry, if that makes you uncomfortable, I shouldn't have done that. Or it could be anything, like whether it's you made an agreement and you didn't keep your side of it, or just the transparency, coming clean, like not keeping secrets.
And it's funny too, and we're kind of getting on a different topic, but maybe somebody needs to hear this, but throughout your marriage, it doesn't matter whether you've been married 2 years or 40, the enemy, Satan, is always there to try to tempt us. I mean, it's happened to me. It happened to me one time when we had given up a very fruitful ministry to go back into seminary with 5 kids. And there was a temptation there for me that could have destroyed our marriage. And I had never thought that could happen to me.
Yeah.
So it's like you just have to stay, like you said, honest and transparent. And luckily, that, thing did not go down the wrong path. But you just have to be on the lookout all the time, because we do have a spiritual enemy out there. Even if people don't believe it, it's true. You cannot believe it, but it's true.
Just like there's a positive force, there's always a negative force.
Right.
I mean, it's even written in science too. Like science recognizes that that's how a lot of the times things work. You've got a positive and a negative force, and one pushing and pulling. And but yeah, like it's so good that you didn't give into that temptation. I imagine you looking back, like you can see what it would have done.
Well, I wish that I would have noticed sooner the pattern that was happening. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole nother topic for somebody to do on a podcast about how things fall into, a sin gets closer until it actually becomes a sin.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother talk. But, I was getting sucked in and, but anyway, yay, God, he rescued me.
That's amazing. And even now where you stand, you are able to look back and see all that God has done in your life. Oh,
yes. And, that was one thing I wanted to say in this podcast was about my father, is that as I gained my personal relationship with God through Jesus and had everything I needed in my Heavenly Father, then no longer did I was able to forgive my dad for everything, and I was able to love him, and he saw that.
Wow.
And it changed our relationship in a positive way. We had that conversation one more time about where him saying to me as an adult even, it's not what you thought it was. And I was able to say, to me, it was what I thought it was. But Dad, I forgive you. And he never said, well, again, he never said again, it wasn't what you thought it was. And he didn't say, please forgive me. I didn't have to have that.
Yeah.
But he changed. And like you said earlier, it took me out of the equation of a conflict. And later, he returned back to the Lord. And I found out that he had accepted the Lord when he was 12, but he had a lot of things that happened to him that wounded him, that caused him to start drinking. He had a horrible abusive relationship with his parents and heartbreak. And so he started drinking. And so it helped me understand him more too. And then later, before he passed away, he wrote me the most beautiful letter of blessing.
Wow.
Seeing my husband and I, and that seeing how my life had changed, and speaking that over me, that God was going to use me to help many people. I remember him saying, in this lost and hurting world. And nobody ever would have thought my dad would say that.
Yeah.
But it came full circle. Not everybody gets to see that.
Yeah.
And my heart goes out to those who never get to have that reconciliation with a broken relationship. But I was very blessed to get to have that. And I'm so grateful for that.
That's incredible. It also provided, it's kind of like closing a chapter.
Right.
They just dwelled on, and that felt like it's kind of like when you're reading and you're like, when is this chapter going to be over so I can put the book down real quick,
right,
go cook or do something. And it feels like in that moment you were given a really beautiful end.
And it gave me such faith, because I thought, if God can heal this broken relationship, and if I could see my dad change, wow, that would be the ultimate. And I got that from the beginning of my walk with God. And it's really been a faith builder, and it's, a lot to hold on to.
Yeah.
Of course, there's always new challenges that come up, and have to admit, I'm a weenie in the beginning, almost of all of them. But then I look back at what God has done, and that keeps my faith strong. And then I stay in the Word and speak the Word over challenges, and no longer rely just on my feelings, but on the Word of God.
You fit into this mold too that the Lord has provided for you. I really love looking back, even in my own life, and seeing what God has done, or how He's grown me, or how He has made me um, appreciate the things that He has blessed me with. Because one of the hardest things, and I say it all the time, is kindness is not a weakness. Kindness is a very difficult thing to do in the sight, or in what's the word? Well, just standing in front of someone who, like Pastor Kendrick has said, giving someone forgiveness or kindness when they have done wrong to you, or when they've hurt you, when you trusted them and that trust was lost.
Right.
There can be such pain that can live there. And giving a person forgiveness or kindness, giving them a blanket, giving them food, that is a very hard thing to do.
That shows great strength, because the world says fight back, stand up for yourself, get revenge.
Yeah.
But it takes a strong person to give forgiveness and meekness and gentleness and humility,
Yeah, that's the normacy in the world. Is be mean back. Don't let anyone step on you.
And anybody can do that,
Yeah, a hard thing to do is to literally turn the other cheek and say, I forgive you. I wish the best for you, and come from an earnest place. That is such a difficult thing to do. And exposing yourself that way too is stepping over what you really want to do, which is lash out, be angry, do something permanent in a temporary situation with your feelings. And then that solidifies the relationship. Because if they've done something to you and then you repeat back, you shut a door that's really hard to open when you two have kind of like lash out on your emotions, and you're like, this is what I think awesome about you, and you say things, and both parties have said things difficult, and then you both don't want to forgive, you both don't want to reconcile. But if you stay on the path of like, I'm going to step away right now because I can't act on what I'm feeling, and then you come back and you're able to say like, you were a bit mean to me, but you know what? Like, I understand that you probably have things going on. I understand that I probably gave you a high expectation. I probably was unfair to you at some point, and kind of highlighting maybe the imperfections that you were carrying. Because a lot of the times we never want to be told that we're wrong. Like, we never want to accept that we did something wrong, that we might have been in a mood, we might have done this or that, but before you can, and I mean, it says like, before you can talk about a splinter in someone else's eye, first acknowledge the log in your own. Like, we are so quick to point out the imperfections in other people, but we're not willing to look at our own family, our own relationships, our own jobs, our own anything. And so being able to look back on yourself gives you the power of kindness, and being like, wow, I deserve mercy every day. I deserve grace. And I think I heard someone say, you don't think about grace until you need it yourself. Until you're the one who needs forgiving, or until you're the one who needs a little bit of like understanding, then are you willing to look at grace in the way? Like a good example is like, let's say you're at work and someone overslept. You're quick to be like, ooh, someone's late today. Until you're the one walking 5 minutes behind through the door, and you're hoping that you've received grace and like, oh, it's fine. You overslept. We're human, very understandable. Because if you receive that, then you're kinder to yourself. But if you walk through and you're like, where have you been? You understand that the time is this time. We can't have you doing this all the time. Like, depending on what you get when you walk through the door will set the tone for the rest of the day. And so making sure that when you are there on time and there is someone who's there late, you can give them the same grace that you would appreciate if they handed it to you. So I really love that you came to that, and you read this beautiful letter that your dad gave you. Did he mail it to you? Did he hand it to you? How did you?
He mailed it to me.
Wow. So you didn't expect it?
No.
What was that like?
Oh my goodness. I still have it.
Wow.
Matter of fact, I was going to bring it and then I forgot.
I still have your letter you gave me. It sits in my Bible. Love it. I forgot I had it too. Yeah. I opened it the other day and I was like, oh, look.
I think it's so important to, still write letters if you can.
It's more
because it's
personal.
Lasting. There are things like that one of my very best friends passed away when she was in her 40s from cancer. And before she died, she wrote those that she was close to letters, things she saw that were good in us, and spoke just a blessing over us. And I definitely, kept that too. So, and
That's beautiful.
had she texted to me,
It wouldn't
I
have been
probably
the same.
wouldn't have it.
Yeah. And that's beautiful because in this world and in our life, we already get highlighted everything that could be better about us, everything that we're falling short on. But if you can be the person that is like, oh, but here's a list of all the things that you're doing great and that you're achieving and that we're proud of you, like that also too has so much value because you're like, wow, like I did not see this in myself. I'm glad that somebody else did. Or when you hear someone else say like, oh, we were talking about you the other day and we were just like talking about how great of a person you are. It's very uplifting,
Right.
Because we're already, we're like I tell all of my clients, we are our own biggest critics.
Right.
And we don't need help tearing ourselves down. We can do that on our own. We can.
Well, that's why, also the Word of God is so important because it is filled with promises of what Jesus said directly about us and the way he treated people. And we saw how he treated people and who we are and what we are when we're a child of God. Because, we can't ever, it's nice when we have people and we're blessed that we have people in our lives. And we do. Yeah. We're lucky, but there are many people and people change sometimes. And, at my age, people get dementia where a loving mother may all of a sudden become your worst enemy because their brain is dying. And so it's the most important thing is to know who you are in Christ. And you can do that through reading the Bible, by going to a good Bible-believing church, by having Christian friends. Truth is truth, Yeah.
One of my favorite things to say is not everybody liked Jesus when he was here. There were many people who met him and were not a fan of him, were even plotting his death. So I can't possibly hold myself up to expectation to be liked by everyone. Right. I have to be okay with not being liked. And I also have to be willing to hold up that same model that he held of, you don't like me and that's okay. Because I still choose to care for you.
Right.
I still choose to
that's
give
so
you,
good.
Yeah, exactly. Like giving you a ride if your car breaks down. It's okay if I'm not the flavor of person that you enjoy. There are salt and vinegar chips that people love. That's their favorite chip. I cannot relate. I wish I could. Pineapple pizza people, that's great. It's not what I eat, but I respect that that's what they like. And if someone comes to my house and they say I like pineapple pizza, I'm going to give them a weird look, but I'm still going to order it and hope that it fills their bellies, you know? So it's perfectly fine to not be accepted by everyone because that's not the goal here.
Right.
How you will not find any fulfillment being accepted by everyone. You need to find fulfillment in accepting yourself and loving yourself through Jesus and what he did for you and how he accepted everyone,
his very last words, he said, Father, forgive them because they do not know what they do. Mm-hmm. And he was treated in the worst way. Yeah. And that was the ultimate showing of love, was to die for what we had done, know?
When I stub my toe, I don't know where the Holy Spirit goes, but he is not there for the next 10 seconds when I am angry. And so I can't imagine, like, Jesus was tortured and whipped and just, nailed literally to the cross. And here I am freaking out over stubbing a toe. And so I am so humbled in those moments because I think about it. I think about like CIA agents or people who like are trained in torture and are trained in handling it. And I'm like, I would not last. Mm-hmm. I would blubber. What information do you want? I am giving it to you. So like it's true. It's hard to follow that example that Jesus gave, but also there's a reason it's there because one day you're going to want someone to show you grace.
Right.
And again, it's perfectly fine for people not to be a fan. The point is not to get adoration and to have people praising you. That's not the point. Right. If that's your goal, you are very confused. Mm-hmm. The goal is to be there for others who need someone there and to give attention to the subjects that need attention. So there's so much beauty in just humbling yourself for others and showing love to others and following that example that Jesus gave and up to his last breath. That's impressive.
Right.
Because I have low patience. So I have to remind myself, like, not everyone loved Jesus, and Jesus still up to his last breath maintained that love and that security. So, I mean, and that's something that, Linda, like, when you walk around the church and you approach somebody, like, you have such a sweetness to you and a smile and a welcoming.
Thank you.
I am so grateful that I got to sit down with you for, what was it, 11 weeks?
Yeah.
Wow, 11 weeks, and got to really know you and meet you and spend time with you. And even when we were doing the praying, get prayed over 4 times by you. So it's just, you're such an incredible person, and your willingness and love for God is such a blessing in my life, and I'm sure in the lives of many others that are so blessed to be around you. And again, like, it's been such an honor to have you on my podcast.
Well, I feel the same way. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And hopefully in the near future, we can have you back. If there's ever an update, or you just want to chit chat, or I don't have anyone willing to be interviewed, I'll just be like, come on, Linda, it's me and you, girl. Let's go.
I would love that.
Yes,
I would love that.
But I'm so incredibly grateful to have had you. And I hope you have an incredible rest of your year, because it's the beginning of 2023, and who knows, like, 365 days, that's a lot of days, that's a lot of hours. Who knows what's gonna go on. So
that's right.
I'm excited to be alongside you in this journey. And
me too.
You can reach out to me at any point. But
thank you.
So grateful. Thank you so much for listening to What God Has Done With My Pain. As always, a huge shout out to Lazuli for her song No Greater Love that has helped make this podcast come to life. You can find her on Spotify and Instagram at Lazuli PROJ, and at We the New Breed, where you'll find artists using their gifts to glorify God. Swing by at What Way This Way on Instagram to catch some behind the scenes snippets. Make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss a single interview. In the meantime, I would love to hear from you on social media or email. Until the next episode.